still just, yeah, maybe just not switching gears. So, okay, let's see. It's all about speed. We will be able to tell a lot over the next 10 moves, just who can play the quickest, who can go bang, bang, bang with their moves. And okay, deep four, deep pawn opening, queen's pawn opening. First time we've seen that from Magnus today, at least. And okay, using this move, the move he used in Game 6 of the World Championship match to win that marathon battle against Nepomniachtchi. This is really interesting decision-making from Magnus. And okay, black pushing a pawn, white castling. This is exactly what we saw yesterday in one of the games between these two until this last pawn move. Really rare decision, just backing up the center with a pawn by Magnus. I've never seen this one before in my life. And I've been playing this the whole time as white, pretty much. Yeah. So, interesting decision. Magnus, the first one to make Duda think, and Duda also backs up his pawns.
And do you think the whole idea is now to start pushing some pawns, challenging black superiority in the centre, or maybe play a longer game? Okay, well, he's gone for immediate action. I like this. I like this idea because, you know, black really can't capture the pawn that's been offered up for grabs, and instead decides to capture a pawn in the middle of the board.
Yep, so
and I'm expecting, I would say, knight takes pawn. Or is it pawn takes?
Yeah, white has a choice of 2 pawns to capture. I would maybe capture the pawn on the 5th rank because that just opens things up even quicker. It's not clear the pawn that has just moved whether white wants to take that with his knight, with his pawn. I would capture the other one. And Magnus did react. Okay, he does go and capture with the knight. A bit of discomfort there, seemingly, from Magnus. He didn't make a quick decision. He spent about 20 seconds on that last move, and that's not usual from him in Blitz. I've played him hundreds of times in Blitz, and he's normally making these decisions instantly. It feels to me as if Magnus is a bit uncertain. And again, pausing. He's got 2 choices. He can take back this knight with the queen or with a pawn. He should have planned this on the last move. Instead, just taking another 20 seconds or so. And, OK, still a balanced position, but Magnus maybe just struggling to switch into this Blitz mode. OK, bringing out pieces. Duda castles, very sensible. We'll see things speed up now. Trade of pawns in the centre. Duda, see how he's reacting instantly to these big decisions, which pieces to trade. Magnus doing a much slower version of that. So, OK, only bishops now on the board. All the knights have disappeared for Blitz. I think both sides will breathe a sigh of relief. Knights are so tricky in Blitz, but white has a small advantage here.
Yeah, I was going to say.
More active queen.
More active queen and something to nibble on the right side of the board. Sorry, the left side of the board. You know, and white's plan is just simple. You know, there's one open line, and he wants to put a rook along the C line and just maximise his forces.
And also, if you look at the 2 central pawns, white has an isolated pawn, black has an isolated pawn, but white's bishops are pointing towards those pawns, black's are purely defending. And, OK, an offer of a queen trade. Magnus, I'm pretty sure, will say no. If you trade the queens off, you lose some ammunition for later in the battle. And if the queens come off, I think we'll just see a draw. Yeah. So Magnus needs to keep the queens on. Black's queen, very passive, so don't trade off an active piece on the side of the board for a passive one.
For me, it's tempting just to march the queen 2 squares up the board. You know, there's a hole there. Why not just occupy it? Yeah,
that would be very logical. You could also make an argument for just sliding back on the diagonal 1 square. Is Magnus going to get ambitious with his queen? He's still playing a bit slowly, compared to Duda, at least. Is he still in rapid mode? This is Blitz now. He needs to decide. Yeah. He's going to keep the queens on. That's a given. He can't trade them off unless he's just not feeling it, unless he wants to bring the match to Armageddon.
Well, he could also take the queens off. OK, he does push the queen 2 squares up the board. I did wonder whether maybe he could play a little bit ambitiously with the queens off the board, but no, I don't think he could. And
I think Duda will keep trying to insist on a queen trade. Black's queen now blocks up her rook, blocks up the top rank, so the black queen could just slide 2 squares to the left, offer a queen trade. Very sensible, very logical. Duda now pausing, but he's got 30 seconds extra on the clock. The time, we're going to keep an eye on it because it's going to decide this game for sure, or it's going to decide the final of the Charity Cup. And OK, playing the most logical move, offering a queen trade. Again, passive piece for active piece is always a good exchange. So Magnus, I'm sure he's going to retreat his queen. No way is Magnus going to trade the queens off now, because also that would help black's rooks occupy the C line, the only open file that Ivanka was talking about.
Okay.
White's queen has to retreat. Magnus has to decide quickly. He's a minute down on the clock.
Yeah.
If this goes to Armageddon, I think Duda is the big favourite because Magnus is just not looking quick right now.
No.
He's not looking confident at all.
No, he's not. Somehow he hasn't quite recovered from what happened in Game 2. And now, like you say, he's taking his time. It is quite a simple position. You know, the pawn structure is almost, well, in the middle of the board. It's kind of symmetrical. It's pretty clear. Not too many minor pieces. It's just about controlling those open files.
Yeah, the bishops kind of balance each other out. Whites are slightly better than blacks, but it's all about the major pieces. If the rooks all disappear, if the queens disappear, dead draw. I don't think black can ever hope to be better, but it just depends whether white can keep the rooks on, keep the queens on. It's not going to be an easy task.
Well, another great thing about tie breaks is that we have more time to gather money for our fundraiser for UNICEF. Josef from Slovakia just donated $11. Yeah, we definitely want to fundraise more money for the important work UNICEF is doing. And also a big thank you to all our supporting partners, all our participants in the Play Magnus Charity Challenge, everyone who has participated in our fundraiser. Okay, we have a move.
We have a move, and that one cost Duda quite a lot of time, and also it's the most natural move in the position. Black's queen now kind of blocking off white's queen from entering, and here we go. All the rooks looking at each other, challenging for this open c-line. White giving his king some breathing space. Black is likely to do the same. The black king. Okay, there we go. Duda, you don't want to leave your king with no breathing space, especially in Blitz. There'll be all sorts of tricks against your king, all these back rank checkmates.
And is it a good idea? Okay, well, he's actually improved the bishop, you know, put it in the middle of the board. I mean, it just feels like a move, a nice move, but okay. And Duda kicking away the queen. And I was curious as to whether, you know, this was actually a good plan by Duda, because it does mean that the contact point between the white army and the black army has suddenly drawn closer. And there you can see Magnus just breaking through on the left side.
And Duda, a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of his head there. He's not so happy. Suddenly, this is a Magnus type of position again. White has a small advantage because of his superior bishops, and white holds the key to the queen side. Ivanka, you looked surprised for a second there.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering whether the bishop that at the minute was looking at not too many pawns could actually step back and start targeting the weak pawn that is going to appear on b5.
Yeah, so white's light squared bishop in front of his king. It's a bit redundant right now. No real work for it, just staring at a well-defended pawn. So Ivanka is expecting it to drop back in a moment. But first, a big decision, queen trade. Can white avoid this? Duda really trying to insist throughout this middle game on getting the queens off. Endgames usually favour Magnus, but the problem is there are no knights, no real imbalances. If the queens come off, I fear we're headed towards a draw. So can Magnus keep the queens on? It's not easy. Maybe the white queen can just slide back to the left, just to the a2 square, keep herself nice and safe, avoiding any trades, and then Ivanka's idea of dropping white's light squared bishop back, hitting the black queen on a different diagonal. So, okay, Magnus still hesitant. Yes, we'll move 23. Okay, he trades a set of rooks first. We'll move 23, 24, but down to 2 minutes for both sides. I think if these two just played a blitz game without having played the kind of rapid play games earlier today, they would have been much quicker than this.
And we've seen a trade of queens, actually. And, well, he did manoeuvre his light square bishop to attack the pawn, so now Duda has to deal with that. Either he defends or he goes on the counter-attack, and he pushes forward with the pawn. Magnus quickly moving the bishop to cover the key c2 square.
Very nice move there from Magnus, stopping the black rook from ever intruding into white's half of the board. Now all of black's squares for his rook are controlled on the c-line, or white has full control there, but white's rook cannot be controlled by black's pieces. So white's rook can jump in and get active at any moment. It's not easy for black to do the same. Okay, Duda fighting for space on the other flank. In the opening, middle game, this would have been very, very weakening. The black king would be very open, but queens have disappeared, so this is fine.
It totally feels like it's weakening, though.
I think it's fine. I think Duda had to try this at some point, because otherwise he would have been suffocated almost for space.
He had some pre-moves.
Yeah, some pre-moves, and white capturing a pawn. Duda had assumed that white would capture it, so he took back with his own pawn instantly. He'd made that move happen before it even occurred on the board. And look at this, the rook coming in. Yeah, maybe you'll be proved right, Ivanka. Maybe the black king will be the target. It feels like Magnus is trying to somehow break his rook across the board. If he can pick up the white rook and plant it next to the black king on the h8 square, that's actually checkmate. So maybe Magnus is just trying to plot a path for that white rook. Meanwhile, the black rook has to guard the 8th rank now, just to prevent any checkmates.
And the white king, free to wander.
Yeah, white's king is very, very safe. No attacking pieces around it. And actually, this is the key move from Magnus. I was underestimating maybe threats against black's king because I thought black could pick up the f-pawn and kick away white's bishop from the centre of the board, but that's not possible. White's rook is actually eyeing up black's light-squared bishop, so yeah, black's a bit frozen, black's a bit stuck. Not clear what to do. And despite me mentioning it was a bit slow from both sides earlier, Magnus has sped up. He's quickened the pace, and I think he's made the last 5 or 6 moves and only spent 10 seconds doing that. So Duda, under 1 minute for the first time. Can he react? This is, again, not a Duda type of position. He very rarely thrives in these types of kind of drier endgames where he's purely defending. And okay, he locks down the pawn structure on the right side of the board, but that's committal as well.
Yeah, I think he primarily did that to release the dark square bishop, because that one, the dark square bishop was kind of stuck on its square. And now the king joins in the action. And
it's time for white's king as well to do the same. So Magnus just keeping his king nice and safe. Black's rook just hinting at getting active. It wants to bring itself down maybe to the 2nd rank to go for some white pawns, but you've got to be really careful. If the black rook ever moves, white's rook is going to go to the 8th rank with a deadly check. So, OK, Magnus keeping black's king honest, keeping black's king tied down to one of its bishops, and Duda trying to evict this white rook. This one's still very tense. It feels like Magnus is making progress, but you still need some tangible... You need to win a pawn, or you need something in order to win this game. Duda just going back and forth, just trying to just fix the blockade.
Maybe it's time just to improve the king. Get the king into the action, put it in the centre, and see maybe whether the king can kind of snake its way around. And I'm thinking of putting it on the b3 square.
Yeah, white's king not really doing too much where it previously stood. So Jovanka's plan of marching the white king all the way across the board. Black's doing the same. Black's playing copycat. The black king's coming, the white king's coming. Whose king is going to be better placed? It feels like white's king has the easier path. White's king can easily slide across black's king. If it moves too close to the... OK, he's got to be careful. If it moves too close to the white rook, it might walk into some deadly checks.
And Duda, 28 seconds left. Is Magnus playing for the win here?
Definitely. Yes. And you can see the king is coming. And it wants to sit on the b3 square. And once it's blockading the pawn, then that pawn is a target. And this is why Duda just decides, no, he does not want that king on the b3 square, and instead cuts it off.
Yeah, but look at black's pieces. They're all kind of bunched together right in the centre, but they're passive. Black's light-squared bishop can't move, you might lose some pawns. Black's dark-squared bishop can't move, you might lose some pawns. Black's rook now forced to cut off the white king. What is black going to do? Nearly everything he touches might have kind of bad consequences right now.
Yeah, he just has to wait with his king. I mean, there's not too many... OK, so he moves his rook.
But now your plan, Jovanka, the white king can continue its journey towards the left.
Yeah, and yeah...
Duda shaking his head as well, 15 seconds.
Not happy, but now Magnus under a minute on the clock, and he has to take a decision.
Yeah, and is he going to move that white king?
He does.
He does. Very natural. It's the continuation of a consistent plan. Very important in every endgame, being consistent. And, OK, Duda trying to maybe hint at trapping the white rook, also setting a nasty idea of checkmate if the white king continues its journey and goes to the b3 square. But Magnus says no. Now a trade of light-squared bishops would favour Magnus, because if black captures this bishop, white will just retreat the rook and take a pawn. Duda, oh, he played that move with just 5-6 seconds left, and the black king is coming. Wow, Duda trying to trap the white rook. Really sneaky plan there. But, OK, now the black rook gets active at least, and has Magnus lost control?
Yeah, the bar is down to 0. He has 35 seconds left on the clock.
And, well, this is why the Magnus has utilised the dark square bishop, just to control and protect those pawns on the right.
Duda miraculously just unravelling, and that black rook is super active now. Also, this is really reminiscent, this endgame, of Duda's win against Magnus Carlsen in the World Cup last year. That one was also a dark squared bishop endgame where black's pawns were better than white's pawns. Black's rook was more active than white's rook. So Magnus has to be careful not to lose control. Duda has beaten him in this type of position
You know,
before.
I think the game is actually soon going to finish in a draw, because I don't think Magnus has a good answer to the rook shuffling between the e1 square and the d1 square.
Yeah, so white's king now under check. If you go to the right, you would have walked into black's rook going to the left. If you went to the left, you would have walked into black's rook going the other way. So right now, a bit of tension, and black's rook just keeping attacking pawns, and Magnus leans back. He knows, as Jovanka says, this game is destined to be a draw. No way to escape the checks, no way to escape black's rook's threats. OK, and there's a big threat in the air, and that's to play bishop takes pawn, destabilising the protection of the dark square bishop. While Magnus plays for the win, he didn't want the draw there, which would have been the safe option. Duda under
1
a couple
second.
of seconds.
Oh, gosh.
He made that move with 2 seconds left. Duda shaking his head. Now Magnus can go and grab a pawn in the centre with the white rook. Wow. OK, Magnus has attacked the black rook. Is Magnus winning material?
Oh, look at that. The bar goes up.
Magnus tricked Duda there. He's attacking the black rook. The black rook is about to fall. The black bishop under a threat as well. White is winning a piece here. Now you can just take this black rook, swing the white rook over, and Magnus takes the win. Duda blundered horribly.
In time trouble. Game over. Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces, the winner of the first Blitz game. He is up by 1 point. Both players...